I'm her human pet, but I can understand her secrets and I think I'm falling for her asterisk. He was just a cargo pilot, until the queen of the Talaxi took him to her bed. Captain Rion Vox thought it would be a simple job, haul some mining parts to a station near the edge of known space, log his delivery, maybe flirt with a bored customs officer, and head back before his coffee went cold. Instead, a blinding flash of blue light hit his ship mid-warp. The controls went dead, alarms screamed, then everything went dark. He woke up flat on his back, completely naked and very aware of the cool, silky material beneath him. A faint hum filled the air. The ceiling above was black glass, showing distant stars blinking slowly. Around him stood 6 tall, violet-skinned aliens with glowing blue eyes and strange, glimmering instruments in their hands. Rian sat up fast. What the hell? He started but stopped just as quickly. They were all women. Tall, graceful and barely dressed in flowing silver strips that left little to the imagination. Each of them was built like a fantasy come to life: long limbs, smooth skin, and double pairs of, well, let's just say upper body abundance. He blinked again, as his brain tried to process if he was still dreaming. Then one of them stepped forward. She was different, taller. Her eyes glowed silver, not blue. Her body shimmered with energy. The others lowered their gazes as she walked, as if she were royalty. She didn't carry a scanner or toolshed, didn't need one. She was the one in charge. I am Sorel, she said, voiced smooth as honey over ice. High Matriarch of the Talaxi, you human are now in my care. Your care, Rion managed, covering himself with his hands and looking wildly around for something to wear. Lady, this is not how interstellar customs works. Sorel's full lips curved in a smirk as she slowly circled him, her gaze never leaving his body. You were not captured. You were selected. Your vessel drifted too close to our field. We examined it, and you, her silver eyes gleamed. What we found was fascinating. I'm flattered, he muttered, but maybe next time ask before stripping a guy and putting him on the world's softest science table. Sorel chuckled, low and smooth. She leaned closer, and her scent hit him sweet floral, but with a metallic temps, alien, intoxicating. We have scanned thousands of species across the galaxy, she said, her voice dropping to a sultry murmur. Many are functional, some are compatible, but none. She paused, trailing her fingertips near his chest. Possessed your proportions. Rion blinked. Ah, thanks. The other women around her giggled, like a group of scientists who'd just discovered their test subject could talk. One of them held up a display. It showed a glowing 3D scan of Rion's body, zoomed in on one particular area. Oh, come on, Rion groaned. You're seriously making a chart of my— Yes, Sorel said, with absolutely no shame. It is remarkable. Nearly double the size of our males. Denser vascular tissue. Extremely responsive, even under stress. She reached out and just barely brushed his shoulder. And that's without stimulation. I swear this is the weirdest dream I've ever had. Sorel stepped even closer. She was only inches away now. Her body radiated heat, power, and something else. A strange, invisible pull he couldn't quite resist. This is not a dream. Human, this is a gift. For you, for me, for my people. Okay, hold on, he said, raising both hands. Are you saying you kidnapped me to outbreed me? Her silver eyes locked with his. Yes, he choked on air. Sorel smiled, clearly amused. The Talaxi have not produced viable offspring in decades. Our genetics have weakened. We have tried cloning, artificial wombs, genetic merging. Nothing has worked. Then we found you. Rian looked around. You mean I'm supposed to fix your entire species because I'm what? Well hung. Sorel tilted her head. In simple terms, yes. Well, that's flattering and horrifying. She stepped back, lifting her hand. A soft hum filled the air, and a shimmering robe of silver material slid from the ceiling and wrapped around her tall frame, almost like liquid light. You are not a prisoner, she said, almost gently now, but you are important. Your body, your seed. It may be the salvation of our bloodline. Rion stared, mouth open. Then she smiled again, but this time softer, almost curious. You may walk freely in this ship. You may ask questions, but I ask one thing in return. What? She stepped forward again, her voice a whisper that danced across his skin. Tonight you will stay in my chamber. Rion paused. Well, he muttered, mostly to himself. This definitely beats cargo runs. And with that, the High Matriarch of the Talaxi turned, hips swaying like silk in zero-G, and walked through a glowing doorway. She didn't look back, but Rian did follow. Rian followed her down the glowing corridor, barefoot, still very naked, and still trying to decide whether this counted as a dream, a trap, or the luckiest day of his life. The hall was quiet, lit with soft pulses of violet light that moved like breath along the walls. The air smelled faintly of something floral, alien, jasmine maybe, and the floor was warm under his feet. He caught a few glances from passing Talaxi attendants. They didn't look surprised. In fact, most looked amused. One even winked at him. He cleared his throat. Do I usually get paraded around like this, or is it just my lucky day? Sorel, walking gracefully ahead of him, smiled without turning. You are not the first outsider to step aboard a Talaxi vessel, but you are the first we've chosen. For royal study. Great, I'm a walking biology lesson. More like a divine mystery, she replied. Our scanners are still processing your sample data, but your readings are off the charts. Hormonal strength, cellular resilience, regenerative properties. I hope you're talking about blood cells. Oh, we are, she said with a sly grin, among others. They reached a tall set of crystal doors that shimmered and split open with a low chime. Inside, the chamber opened into a space so beautiful Rian stopped in his tracks. The room glowed with soft lavender light. Silken curtains floated like clouds. The bed, if it could be called that, was a massive round platform surrounded by flowing water and glowing petals. It was part bedroom, part garden, part luxury spa. So this is where the science happens. Sorel turned to face him. Slowly, she lifted her hands and let her robe melt off her body in a ripple of light. No, Rian, she said. This is where the connection happens. He stared, his brain completely short-circuited. She was radiant. Her skin was the color of twilight, smooth, almost glowing. Her forebreasts rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. Every curve of her body looked sculpted, elegant, yet unmistakably feminine. Alien beauty, but stunning nonetheless. I should have gone to college, Rian muttered. Sorel stepped closer. I studied your culture, she whispered, brushing her fingers along his chest. Your mating rituals are strange, complex, but deeply emotional, intimate. Well, I mean, yeah, he said, suddenly aware of how hard his heart was beating. We don't just go at it. There's build-up, tension. Sometimes we even talk. Talk, she repeated, like it was a foreign word. Fascinating. Her hand trailed down his chest, across his stomach. And foreplay, she murmured, rolling the new word over her tongue. A form of teasing, seduction, drawing out pleasure. Our males do not do this, well, he said with a smirk. Then they've been doing it all wrong. She looked up at him, silver eyes shining. Show me. Rian didn't need to be told twice. He leaned in slowly, letting their lips meet in a soft, testing kiss. Her breath caught in surprise. She gasped into his mouth as her hands gripped his shoulders. He deepened the kiss, slow and steady, guiding her back toward the bed with gentle pressure. She trembled under his touch, not from fear, but from not knowing what came next. Every movement he made was deliberate. Every caress, every whisper. He traced the delicate ridges of her collarbone, kissed the soft skin between her shoulders. Her breathing grew faster, her body responding in ways she clearly hadn't expected. I feel, she whispered, voice shaking, warm, weak, but good. So good, he smiled against her neck. Yeah, that's the idea. She let out a soft moan, sharp surprised. Her legs trembled. She collapsed into the soft bedding, pulling him down with her. For a queen who ruled with an iron will, she looked completely undone under his touch. You're changing me, she whispered, clawing lightly at his back. I never knew it could feel like this. Neither did I, he admitted, kissing her again. Deeper this time, but I could get used to it. And then, in the quiet shadows of that glowing chamber, their bodies joined, human and alien. It wasn't just passion, it was discovery, wonder, and something deeper neither of them wanted to admit just yet. Later, as they lay tangled together in the soft bedding, Sorel's fingers traced lazy patterns over his chest. I believe this is what your people call cuddling. Yeah, Rian mumbled, half asleep. You're doing great, she smiled softly, resting her head against him. You are unlike any being I have ever touched, ever known. Well, he said, eyes closing. I've always been good at making a first impression, but neither of them knew yet that this was more than the first time. It was the beginning of something that would change the galaxy. Rian woke up slowly, not to an alarm or ship's klaxon, but to the soft sound of purring breath and the warmth of something or someone pressed against him. He blinked. Pillows, silk, violet skin. Sorel. Her body was draped halfway over him, one leg lazily tangled around his waist, her four breasts rising and falling with deep, slow breaths. One of her hands rested on his chest, fingers twitching lightly as she dreamed. He didn't move, he just stared. Because, holy hell, she was still here. She hadn't vanished in a swirl of smoke or turned out to be a hallucination. She hadn't tossed him out after the experiment. She was snuggling like a real person, like a lover. And then she drooled on him just a little. He blinked, then smirked. Well, he whispered, guess that's universal. Her eyes fluttered open, silver irises glowing faintly. She looked at him, sleepy and dazed for half a second, and then something in her gaze softened. Her hand moved to cup his cheek. You stayed. You didn't kick me out, he replied, stretching beneath her, which is nice, because I really like this bed. She laughed quietly, a sound so different from the regal tone she used with her people. Here, with him, she was softer, curious, even playful. I've never slept beside someone after mating, she admitted. It's not our way Talaxi breed in isolation, efficient, fast. Well, Rian said with a cocky grin, you might need to update your traditions because last night, he gave a low whistle that wasn't just mating, that was art. Sorel rolled her eyes playfully, not insulted. It was intense, she admitted. Then, after a pause, and confusing, she sat up slightly, her expression thoughtful. My body reacted in new ways, my heart rate, skin temperature, hormonal surges beyond predicted levels. Her eyes narrowed slightly. I shook Rian. He blinked. Yeah, that's called an orgasm. We don't have those. He nearly fell off the bed. You're telling me your people never? She shook her head. Talaxi reproduction is direct. No pleasure, no stimulation. It's function over feeling. Rian stared at her. You poor species. Sorel tilted her head, as if reconsidering her entire evolutionary path. Your species. You attach emotion to coupling, physicality and intimacy. That closeness, we call it making love, Rian said gently. It's not just about bodies, it's about connection. Sorel didn't reply right away. She looked down, almost uncertain. I felt safe, she said finally. Vulnerable, but not afraid. That is rare for me. He reached out, took her hand. You're not just a queen to me, Sorel. You're her. Her fingers tightened slightly around his, and for a moment the silence was warmer than any words. But then the bedroom door hissed open, and a nervous Talaxi female entered, eyes wide. Apologies, matriarch, she blurted. Urgent scans. You must see. Sorel sighed. Bring them. The female approached, holding a glowing tablet. Sorel studied it, her brow furrowing deeper with each line of alien script. What is it? Rian asked. Sitting up, Sorel handed him the screen. He couldn't read the symbols, but the highlighted diagram in the center was unmistakable. His DNA, side by side with hers. You've merged our genes, he said slowly. No, she said, voice low. They've merged themselves. What? Sorel turned to him, silver eyes wide with something close to awed fear. You've triggered something ancient in my bloodline. Your DNA isn't just compatible, it's dominant. My cells are rewriting themselves. Around you, Rian blinked. Wait, are you saying I'm changing? Rian inside? My body is preparing for something, for reproduction. His jaw dropped. You mean you're pregnant? Sorel swallowed hard, the queenly confidence flickering. It's too early to confirm, but the signs are strong. Stronger than anything we've seen in a century. Rian leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Well damn, I came out here to deliver mining parts. And now I might be the father of alien royalty. Sorel smiled faintly. You joke, but this is sacred. My people haven't known birth in generations. I'm not joking, Rian said seriously, turning to her. If there's a kid, I'm not leaving. Her eyes widened, not expecting that. I was alone most of my life, he said quietly. Never had a real family. If we've created one, I want to be part of it. She stared at him a long moment. Then, silently, she reached up and kissed him, not as a queen, not as a researcher, but as a woman unsure, hopeful, and maybe falling in love. They held each other in silence, but outside those silky walls, word had already begun to spread. The High Matriarch had taken a human to her bed, and now, something new was growing inside her, not just life, a future. Word spread like plasma fire through the Talaxi vessel. The Matriarch had not only taken the human to her chamber, she had kept him there, all night, and then, for a second night, and a third. By the fourth rotation, he wasn't just the specimen anymore, he was hers. Some called it scandal, others called it prophecy. But everyone was talking. Rian, meanwhile, was busy adjusting to life as a strange new breed of alien royal consort. He'd gone from hauling cargo crates and eating protein bars in zero-G to waking up in luxury, being dressed in ceremonial robes, and getting offered exotic fruit by attendants who couldn't look him in the eyes without blushing. Is this jellyfish? He asked one morning, poking a translucent orb on his plate. It's a sacred fertility stimulant, one servant whispered. Rian blinked, unhung. I used to eat scrambled eggs, but beneath the soft bed sheets and awkward meals, tension was building. Queen Sorel barely left her chambers anymore. Her body was changing, not in a grotesque way. If anything, she was glowing. Her skin was brighter, her voice deeper, her presence more magnetic. But her aura pulsed with something strange, something ancient. You feel like lightning when I touch you now, Rian murmured one night, holding her as she trembled in his arms. It is the awakening, she whispered. You have awakened me. The royal council, however, was not as enchanted. Had always ruled with strength, wisdom, and solitude. She had no mates, no heirs. That had been tradition. Now, she had a human lounging shirtless in her private garden, feeding her figs and kissing her neck between political updates. To the Talaxi elite, this was chaos. Your Majesty, hissed Counselor Kereth, an elder with skin like burnished silver and a voice that cut like glass. He is disrupting protocol. Our people do not breed with outsiders. Sorel didn't even look up from her throne. She stroked the side of Rian's face instead, her fingers brushing through his unkempt human hair. Our people, she said calmly, have not bred at all in 40 years. Kereth's jaw tightened. And what of the matriarchal purity, the bloodline of stars? Sorel turned then, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. My child will carry my blood, and his Kereth's silver skin flushed violet. It is unnatural, it is alive, she snapped. Which is more than I can say for the rest of our wombs. Silence fell across the chamber. Rian didn't speak. He knew better now. Sorel didn't need his defense. But later that night, in the quiet stillness of her room, he looked at her and asked, You all right? She nodded slowly, sitting down on the edge of a floating bed. I expected resistance, but not from those I once trusted. He sat beside her. It's not about you being with me. It's about you changing the rules. She looked at him. You think I'm wrong? No, he said gently. I think you're right. I just think you're going to have to fight for it. She gave a small, tired smile. You speak like a soldier. I've fought to be seen my whole life, Rian murmured. Turns out it's not that different out here. There was a pause. Then she leaned over and rested her head on his shoulder. You are more than I imagined, she whispered. Not just physically. He chuckled. Well, I mean, that is my strong suit. She laughed quietly, then bit his earlobe gently just enough to make him jump. Don't tempt me, she warned. Oh, I'm always tempting you, he said, grinning. But outside, in the deep corridors of the vessel, Kereth was already whispering to others. If the matriarch won't protect our purity, we must. Plans were forming. Old traditions don't die quietly, especially when a human is the one breaking them with nothing but charm, courage, and very powerful DNA. They came for him in the night. Rian had just dozed off, arm wrapped around Sorel's waist, when the soft hiss of the chamber door made his eyes snap open. No knock, no chime, just silence and three masked figures stepping through the shadows, blades in hand. He reacted on instinct, rolled off the bed, yanking Sorel down, with him just as a dagger sliced through the air where her neck had been. She gasped, startled but not panicked. She was a queen and a warrior, but she was also 6 weeks pregnant with a child no Talaxi believed possible, and that made Rian furious. Stay down, he growled, teeth bared, grabbing the edge of a metal sculpture from the wall. The first assassin lunged. Rian ducked, swung the sculpture like a bat, and cracked it across the attacker's jaw. The masked alien crumpled to the floor with a choked grunt. The second came fast, but Rian had always been scrappy, especially when shirtless and pissed off. He caught the arm, twisted it hard, and kneed the alien straight in the gut. A crack, a scream, another one down. The third, however, was ready. He pulled a stun blade vibrating with deadly blue energy and lunged at Rian's exposed chest. Sorel shouted his name. Rian braced for pain, but it never came. Sorel was suddenly between them, her body glowing with raw power. She held the assassin by the wrist. Her bare hand radiated heat that melted the blade's edge. You dare touch what is mine, she hissed, with one surge of energy. She flung the attacker across the room and into the wall where he slid down, unconscious. Then silenced the room. Stank of sweat and ozone. Rian stood there, panting, blood dripping from a shallow cut on his arm. Sorel turned to him, glowing silver and wild-eyed. Her body trembled, not from fear, but from fury. You protected me, she said softly. You protected me, he replied. They stared at each other, hearts pounding. The guards burst in seconds later, too late, weapons raised, but the danger, it was already over. What they saw instead was their matriarch wrapped in the arms of her human lover, both bloodied, both alive, and holding each other like it meant everything. Later, as medics cleaned the wounds and replaced the broken door, sat beside Sorel while she cradled her stomach protectively. They sent assassins, she said coldly. My own people. Not all of them, he replied. Just the ones who were scared. Of what? Of the future, he said. Of you changing things, of me. Sorel turned to him, her voice low. They see you as a threat. He gave a dry smile. That's funny. I came here with 0 weapons, got stripped naked, and now somehow I'm the most dangerous man in the Empire. She looked at him with something new in her gaze, not just affection. Respect, Rian Vox, she said slowly. You are more than a mate. You are a force, he chuckled. Not bad for a space trucker, but he knew things had changed. The attempt on his life wasn't just an attack, it was a message. There were Talaxi leaders who would rather kill their own queen than let her carry a child with a human. That meant he couldn't just lie in silk sheets anymore. He had to do more than love her. He had to protect her and the tiny half-human heartbeat growing inside her. Because now, they weren't just playing house, they were starting a war. And Rian Vox was going to fight it with everything he had. Asterisk, the palace was quiet. Too quiet. Rian stood beside Sorel on the observation balcony, watching the stars twinkle over the glowing towers of the capital below. His arm was around her. Her hand was resting protectively over her belly. But something in the air felt wrong. Heavy, waiting. You feel it too, Sorel said softly. He nodded. Like a storm just before the lightning hits. She turned to him. The council hasn't spoken to me directly since the attack. Kereth is silent. But there are meetings, secret ones. Movements in the lower decks. Shuttles arriving with no registry, Rian asked. Worse, she said, purging. They're preparing to remove me and our child. Rian clenched his jaw. Then we strike first. You would go to war for me. He looked her in the eyes. No, I'd go to war for us. For you. For our kid. For the future they're afraid of. Sorel stared at him. Then, slowly, she smiled. You sound like a king. I sound like a human, he said. One who's seriously pissed off. Within hours, Rian had a plan and, surprisingly, Sorel let him lead it. He wasn't a general. He didn't know Talaxi protocols or battle formations. But he knew people. And more importantly, he knew how to improvise. His first move, talk to the palace staff. The attendants, cleaners, engineers, those who the nobles ignored. And he learned something valuable. Not everyone wanted the old ways to stay. Many were tired of watching their race fade, generation after generation. Tired of cold halls and sterile science. They wanted change. They just needed someone brave or stupid enough to lead it. That's where Rion came in. He rallied the loyalists, those still loyal to Sorel, not just tradition. He gave them speeches, jokes, stories of Earth love songs, and ridiculous human courtship rituals. Back home, we buy flowers. We get nervous. We ask before we kiss. And somehow, we still mess it up. He grinned. But we don't run from love. We chase it. They laughed. They listened, and then they followed him. The attack came sooner than expected. Kareth launched his coup during the weekly energy calibration when the royal guard was at minimum strength, and palace shields were hot. He arrived with 50 warriors, dressed in battle regalia, each bearing the ancient sigil of the bloodline zealots. They stormed the Hall of Stars where Sorel sat calmly on her throne, Rion at her side. "You've broken the law of our mothers," Kareth spat, drawing his blade. "You've defiled the royal womb." Sorel didn't flinch. "I've restored it." By mating with a beast, Kareth turned to Rian, a creature of instinct and meat. Rian stepped forward, unarmed but burning with fury. "Funny," he said. "The creature is the one standing beside his pregnant mate, protecting her. The beast is the one bringing knives to silence progress." Kareth lunged, but Rian was ready. He dodged the first strike, grabbed a fallen guard's pulse spear, and swung it like a baseball bat straight into Kareth's ribs. The old noble howled in pain. Stumbling back, Rion didn't stop. He fought with the rage of a father Chubi, a lover, a human with something to lose. His moves were unrefined, dirty, wild, and utterly effective. Talaxi guards began turning. Some dropped their weapons, others switched sides. Because in that moment they saw who the real warrior was. Not single quotes are eaten, but Rian Vox. Within minutes, the battle was over. Kareth lay on the floor, defeated, gasping. Sorel stood tall over him. She didn't raise a weapon. She simply looked at Rian and nodded. Rian stepped forward. "Your time's up," he said. "The future doesn't belong to bloodlines. It belongs to life." And with that, Kareth was taken away. Later that night, the halls of the palace echoed with a sound that hadn't been heard in decades. Laughter. Joy. Life returning. Rian sat beside Sorel on the throne, now shared not just as her consort, but her equal. "You just beat a rebellion with a stick and some dad jokes," she whispered. He smiled. "Told you I'm resourceful." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Rian." "Yeah." She took his hand, placed it over her belly. And for the first time, he felt it. A tiny flutter beneath her skin. A kick there, child. And suddenly everything melted away. Because in that moment, war, politics, titles, none of it mattered. He wasn't just a cargo pilot anymore. He was hers, and now, he was going to be a father. Weeks passed. The palace no longer whispered behind closed doors. It sang. Everywhere Rian walked, heads bowed, not in mockery, but in respect. Not because he was human, but because he had earned it. They called him Consort Preta now. Some called him the fertile flame behind his back, which made Sorel laugh every time she heard it. "You bring more than fire," she whispered to him once in bed. "You bring light." The rebellion was over. Kareth was gone exile to the barren moons with his followers. The council had been dissolved. In its place stood a new ruling order. Sorel and Rion, united in both power and in purpose. That the child within her was strong, and the palace medics were in awe. Not only had the fetus developed faster than any previous royal embryo, they couldn't even classify its traits. It was both Talaxi and other. Not just hybrid. More. A new branch of evolution. Sorel's body had adapted. Her senses sharpened. Her voice now resonated with a low harmonic that only Rian seemed to understand. Like her entire being was now synced to his. "I am becoming something else," she admitted one evening. "And it began the night I took you to my bed." Rian looked at her calm and steady. "Does that scare you?" She thought for a long moment. "No," she whispered. "It makes me feel free." They spent their nights not just as lovers, but as builders. Together they rewrote old codes, erased outdated laws, and carved a path for new unity, one that accepted humans as allies, not inferiors, one that encouraged emotion, connection, and something that Talaxi had long forgotten: love. The day of the birth came in a storm of violet light and electric pulses. The palace darkened, bioluminescent walls pulsed. Healers gathered, old priestesses sang in voices no one had used in centuries. Sorel labored with strength and grace, holding Rion's hand the entire time. He never left her side. Not once. When the child came, there was silence. Then the softest cry filled the air. The room wept, even the old hard generals, because in Sorel's arms lay something that Talaxi thought they would never see again. A child, with glowing silver eyes, violet skin kissed with bronze, and a small wisp of dark brown hair curling from his crown. Rian couldn't breathe. He just stared, overwhelmed, as Sorel looked up at him and said, "He has your eyes. But he smiles like me." They named him Korin, an ancient word meaning dawn after shadow. Sorel declared it before the people herself, standing beside Rian, their newborn, in her arms. This is our child, born of Talaxi wisdom and human will. He is not the end of tradition. He is the beginning of truth. The people erupted in joy. Not just for a baby, but for hope. Months later, Rian would sit on the garden terrace, Corin asleep on his chest, and Sorel curled beside him, watching the sun rise over her reborn empire. He stroked the boy's soft head and whispered, "I never thought I'd be part of something like this." "You didn't join it," Sorel said gently. "You made it." He smiled. From a cargo run to this, she kissed him. From science experiment to sovereign, they laughed. And somewhere, across the stars, the universe quietly adjusted because one human had done something no empire, no science, no ancient bloodline could. He brought life, not just through biology, but through love, defiance, and a very human refusal to give up. And as the twin suns rose over the Talaxi capital, casting golden light on their family, Rian Vox smiled and knew he was exactly where he was meant to be.